Welcome to the Holeinthewall Business Podcast with Bill and James. I'm James Groves, and along with my business partner, Bill Dement, we want to share our journey as small business owners with you. As owners of Holeinthewall Drywall Repair, we will attempt to peel back the curtain of owning a small business in the trade service industry and talk about the many adventures of owning a small business. Hey, Bill.
Hey, James. I'm sure you've already noticed, but I'm not in the studio today.
Not today. Somehow you're on vacation.
Coming to you via Zoom from the sunny beaches in Florida today.
I'm sorry for your suffering there. I guess we're allowed to give you time off eventually, but somehow you still able to squeak away from family to kind of zoom in for this one, because I think this is special.
I didn't want to miss this one.
Yeah, this is great. We have another remote guest that's here, somebody who's become somebody near and dear, although this is the very first time I get to see his face. We've talked on the phone and on text, but I'd love to introduce Fred Webster. Fred, you are a TES coach.
Yes.
And I just introduce yourself a little bit to the audience, kind of give us kind of where you came from and what is it that you do right now?
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, James and Bill. It's such a pleasure to be with you and an honor to be part of the growing, I guess, Holeinthewall family by referring people to talk to you and see if they too can become business owners. I'm with TES, which is the Entrepreneur Source, and we are actually a career ownership franchise. We coach people to, as I like to say it, own their careers rather than to be owned by it. And so we're a little bit different than franchise consultants or franchise brokers. There's nothing wrong with what we do or they do. It's just a different approach. We try to tease out the inner entrepreneur that 70% of American workers say they want to be, but they don't necessarily know how to get there. Only about 5% are really willing and able to do that. And I get the joy of talking to people that I find mostly right now. I find them on LinkedIn. They're open to work. They say they're looking to make a change, and maybe they have a kernel of interest into becoming a business owner. And if we can find out what their goals are and where they want to be at the end of the rainbow, we can try to reverse engineer the best way to do that. And sometimes that's not business ownership, and that's okay. But if it is, and they've never considered it before, we want to at least give them the opportunity to explore it, find out if there's something they like about it, and see if it can reach their goals. And if it can, let's find a way to do it. And if it can't, well, that's clarity. So I've been doing this for about 2 years now. And previous to that, I was in healthcare for about 25 years. I was in pharmaceuticals with a large pharmaceutical company. And then I moved over to the hospital side where I was working with physicians and surgeons to make sure that our facilities were what they needed, help make sure that they were productive, had the equipment they needed, the relationships they had within the facilities. And that was really great for a while. But at some point I got stuck, and I actually got called by a TES coach myself to see if I wanted to pursue business ownership as a possibility. And we went on that journey. And long story short, I looked at about 7 different businesses after really figuring out, yes, I wanted to be a business owner. It took about 3 weeks for me to make that realization. And then I went whole hog into 7 very different franchise possibilities myself. And as it turns out, I ended up realizing that I needed to be a coach. I needed to help others do what I was doing, go through what I went through to find that freedom that business ownership gives you. And I haven't looked back, and suffice it to say, I've been very successful. But mostly my success, I feel, is kind of bringing people to the realization that they could be a business owner. And even if it's not right now, maybe it's later, or maybe they become a consultant that they never knew they could be. It's not just about, really, it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with them, and helping them find that clarity. And that's the true purpose of what I do.
Well, that's great. We actually had one of our candidates that was looking at us, and you may have known Jeff. And then he decided that, you know what, in this process, he actually wanted to be a coach with TES as well. Mm-hmm. So he didn't end up, getting awarded franchise with us, because he ended up, going the route of TES. So I thought it was really interesting, because actually knowing him and spending so much time with him, I was like, what a great fit.
Yeah.
He was just he wants to help people so much. It was a great fit for him. So
yeah.
Well, that is great. We really like TES. We're part of a few broker group, but there's nothing like TES, and all of the coaches that we have worked with. Everyone there just seems to have a different. I'm not sure how to call it. I mean, there's just a different mindset. You know, they
Mm-hmm.
approach finding candidates differently, and they vet them and they hold their hand a lot differently than some of the other brokerage that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
well, I will tell you, we've had some great successes here at Holeinthewall, and in part thanks to TES and to you. I find it pretty funny that two of our newest owners, Jay over in Boise, Idaho, and Jordan in Philadelphia, and they're out up and running. And I'm not sure you've talked to those guys lately, but they're just doing amazing.
Yeah.
We're all candidates that you brought to the table with us, and
Yeah.
you know, and being able to celebrate, you know, because even as of just yesterday, we just signed another couple from Destin, Florida, Will and Megan, and thanks to you, they found Holeinthewall. And it was funny because we were kind of talking through it. I didn't realize at first they were the candidate that you brought in the door, and I was like, "Holy moly, this guy's bringing three amazing people."
Yeah, they really are.
Just in the past few months.
Yeah.
So I thought it was cool that we were able to get their franchise agreement signed yesterday, and then we have a chance to kind of celebrate with
and
you
then
today.
you have you on today. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Jay, actually, I'm in Boise, Idaho myself. And Jay is a friend of mine, a colleague I worked with at the hospital. And he came out of the IT business, which, you know, and so did Will, a little bit differently. But it's so fascinating. And I think, you know, the takeaway for anybody listening to this is that you don't have to be expert as a technician in the field that you're owning. In fact, in some ways, it's better that you're not. Because if anybody's read the E-Myth Revisited, and I'd highly recommend it, anybody who's looking at starting their own business, read it. The person who's expert in the technician piece of the business they're looking to grow may not be the best business owner for that business because they have a tendency to retract themselves into the technician space and get stuck there. And so, for example, I have a really good friend who's got a very successful startup that she did in Boise, not in Boise, in Chicago, doing charcuterie. And she's amazing. She's on TV all the time and she's got a following and all this stuff. But she's doing all the technical piece of the design and the teaching and everything. And she can't get into the growth phase. She can't scale it up because she's limited by herself and what she can do. And so she's kind of frustrated there. She's a tremendous business mind. She knows how to grow a business. She's got a finance background, very well educated, has lots of support from her spouse, but she's frustrated that she's not making the money she wants. And I think it's because she can't scale it and because she is the business. And so, whereas if you get into a franchise like this, you know, we got two IT guys. What do they have to know about drywall repair? Nothing.
Right.
None.
But they know project management very well. And they know how to hire people. And they know how to motivate people. So that's what they need. So they can hire the techs. You guys can do the training for them. And now they're rocking and rolling and pumped to become business owners themselves and the freedom that it brings. And that's the nippy thing about franchising in general, but in particular, the support that Holeinthewall gives is amazing. And that's what's been the key to them finding a fit, is what they've told me, is they know they got the support, they love the culture, and it's relatively plug and play for them. And that's what makes it all so exciting.
Yeah, it was great having those three candidates come through. We had, of course, Jordan and Jay from you, and then we had Kevin, another owner from St. Louis, and they were all in training together. And then they became, like, we started group chats and we're talking back and forth, and then we all meet here in the Orlando facility for 2 weeks, and they sat in, you know, for a week in classroom study in our conference room, just learning how to run the business. They all shared a house together, and so not only are they now part of a growing business, but they now have they now have a community that they can be involved with and they talk with. And we last week we had just a group owners call where we all got on Zoom together. So all of the existing owners, past and present, all got on, and then to see and hear the camaraderie that was already happening between all of the owners was fascinating because they're not alone. So you are in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So not only do you have the full support, obviously, of my team here and Bill and I and Holeinthewall, but you now have this full support of all of the new owners and all the existing owners coming down, and they all want to help each other succeed. Like Jordan, I don't know if have you talked to Jordan, but he hit this amazing project, job number 2, out of the chute,
Yeah.
39 apartment units, and it was just a gigantic.
Yep.
And to hear the
Yep.
celebration of all of the other owners cheering him on, and then
Yeah.
he had ideas that the other owners could then follow to potentially get big jobs like that, which was like, I mean, and I just sit back and kind of go, that's amazing, just to see the camaraderie. And again, we're just starting. So I really appreciate those guys. So keep bringing those good candidates, Fred.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you've got 2 or 3 more in your pipeline that have introduced. I'm cautiously optimistic about them. I'm not as confident about them as I am the other 2 or 3, but they're still great candidates. We'll just see if they're the right fit and you're the right fit for them. But they have all said that the experience with Holeinthewall has been phenomenal, which I had no doubt. You've got some great friend dev guys with Andrew to make that possible, and then you guys steal the show when they meet you. There's just something about it. I can't put my finger on it, but it's everyone's had a pleasurable experience meeting you. So
that's great. Well, I will tell you, we can't fake it. It's just this is just who we are, right? I mean, and frankly, you know, this is episode number 149. So we just passed our 3-year anniversary of the podcast. So what we find is a lot of the candidates start listening to the show because there's several ones that Andrew Mayers, our friend guy, he signs them as homework. You know, go listen to episode. You know, so they listen to it and they hear us. And it was Jay Middleton who said the other day, he says, either you guys are the real deal or you're psychopaths, because there's just, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, somebody mentioned that you guys are just really authentic, and as many podcasts as we've produced, it's pretty difficult to be anything except what you are, and that's exactly what we present.
Yeah, and what's great about this whole process is it's not just us vetting them out; it's them vetting us out. It's it's a mutual evaluation. So this process is, and obviously we're going through multiple people, and they're looking at multiple other franchises, and so it has to be a good fit for them. And we're looking at them: are they going to be a good part of our family? Do they have the same values? Are they going to be able to follow our processes? Will they be able to contribute to our further growth, our innovation? A lot of times people think that just do it our way. It's our way or the highway. And the reality is yes, do it our way. But innovating together is something that we really want to encourage. Several of our new owners have already come up with great ideas that we're going to take and move nationwide. So it's fantastic. A lot of fun. I am curious what you're seeing in the out there, because obviously I know that we are not your only franchise that you showcase a little bit. What are some other things that are out there? What's kind of hot in the market right now? What are you seeing that are some good places to kind of look at?
I think there's something 5,700 some odd franchises out there, and we work with about 350, so not even 10%. And what I see in some that we're not affiliated with that seem to be hot, and they're a little bit more on the upper end of the investment range, but the golf simulator space seems to be taking off in lots of different ways. I was just walking down the street the other day, and there was a bar / golf thing in kind of a retail location in a strip mall. That looked to be mom and pop, but they're popping up. I see them on Instagram a lot in the Boise area. And there were just 2 there's one out of Salt Lake, I think, and they popped up in Boise. That's an interesting one. What I'm always interested in, frankly, what piques my curiosity are the real specialty ones, where it's a very, very much a niche market, because there's a lot of different home services brands. They do painting, they do roofing, they do cleaning, and those are all very good. And it's such a fragmented market. I think that's one thing people don't realize is, there's a lot of people doing that. I don't know if I want to get into that competition. I want to have something that's more unique. That's one way to look at it. So that's where those niche brands, I think, are interesting. But I think it's also important to realize that just because someone has another brand, no one has more than like 2 or 3% share in a market. So there's plenty of room for other people to come in, and it might just be that you're the one that picks the phone up fastest. You're delivering a higher level of service. People buy from who they like, not necessarily the brand. And so all the brand is a vehicle to get you in front of people, and then they buy you. So if you trust yourself, if you can count on yourself and you believe in yourself more than you believe in others, then you're going to be successful. I think it's true in life. I tell my kids, look, average is there's a pretty low bar for average these days, which is unfortunate. So if you can just be 10% better than average, it'd be great if you're the top performer in an industry. That's great. But you don't have to be successful. If you're just 10% better than the average, you can crush it because our average is so low. So think about that in the service brands. If you're the one that picks up the phone, delivers on your promise, under promises and over delivers, you're going to kill it no matter what you do. So I think that when we look at these fragmented spaces, that's where there's plenty of room for everybody to get their share of the market and be successful. I don't know if that answers your question completely, but it's hard to say what's hot when I think just business ownership is hot.
Yeah.
Because the corporate world is so awful. For me.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that 3 of the more recent franchisees that we've had came out of the IT world. Mm-hmm. And I told James there must be a shakeout going on there. And then somebody says, well, maybe they're affected by AI, but that's not what I was hearing from those guys. I was hearing they're just tired of having people above them. They're tired of people above them that make bad decisions or won't make a decision. Mm-hmm. One guy said, I work for a guy and I'm in the IT department. He wouldn't even give me the passwords.
That was Jay.
That was Jay. And he was really frustrated with that. So I'm amazed. And so my observation is there's a real shakeout kind of going on in some of those white collar jobs.
Mm-hmm. And if I can add to that, to put some color on it, I'd like to say that COVID killed the employee-employer relationship, in my opinion, for any number of reasons. You look at people, they shoved them into remote work and then they made them come back. That you're hearing that a lot. I think if I could sum it up, COVID took the veneer off of the employee-employer relationship of people actually caring. Employers pretended to care, employees pretended to care, and now it's transactional. And honestly, I think it's kind of refreshing because let's face it, this is all transactional if you don't own it. If you have no ownership in it, what loyalty do you have to a company who can kick you to the curb any minute? They may not, but it's this illusion of security. And people say, well, wait, but there's a recession. I want to make sure I'm employed. I said, really? If there's a recession, we're all going to suffer. Wouldn't you rather be in a situation where you have control over what the next steps are? If a recession hits and the drywall repair business takes a hit, well, everybody's taking a hit. But if you're the owner, as Jay would say, well, I'm just going to work harder. I'm going to go out and be sure that I get in front of more people. There's some control over your future when you own your business.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're completely putting your life in the hands of another.
And I can attest that's so true. We had that very discussion this morning, did we not, James?
Sure
Let's
did.
just get in front of more people. We're always interested in growing, but it's constantly that discussion. Let's get out there and push a little harder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so at least you've got a little more control.
We do have more control. And what's interesting is people are tired of building other people's businesses. So they blood, sweat, and tears working on someone else's company, working overtime with their salary. They're not getting compensated for it. Sure, they got a security of a paycheck for now, right? That's not guaranteed. Thank you, COVID. We saw that, how that was, essential or not. And yet they're very capable people. They're people who know how to build businesses because they're doing it right now. Listen, I'm that way. I worked for a $150 million production company. I was the director of operations. I helped build that business to where it was. And I took my own ownership and partnered with Bill and Holeinthewall because I wanted to become my own boss. I wanted to be the boss that I was never able to be in corporate world, right? And to see the owners embracing their employees, treating them like family, working through their issues, that's who we are. And that's what's really nice about owning your own business and really kind of taking the range for yourself. And listen, if it fails, well, that's on you, right? But that's okay because we all have an issue somewhere down the road. You just learn from it. So that's great. That's really great advice. And curious, you mine for people basically, right? You're just out there just kind of seeing who's out there. So
Mhm.
when you were, I mean, how'd you find Will? Because in his bio, he just said that, basically you found him on LinkedIn, and I kind of
Mhm.
think, what is that process like?
Mhm. Mhm. Without getting too, I guess, I don't know how much IP there is in this space, but there's franchise brokers and consultants hitting people on LinkedIn all the time, and everyone's going to have their own search criteria as to who they're looking for. But I think it's a different. What makes us different is, again, we don't. I don't come off asking if someone wants to get into franchising. That's not my goal. My goal is to say, hey, do you need a second look at your career options? And do you want to have a 15-minute conversation and see if I can help you get to where you want to go and see what possibilities are out there beyond W-2? And people just have to respond, right? And so but it's maybe it's a little vague, but people are intrigued. And really, what we're looking for is open-minded individuals who just want to learn. And if you're open-minded to learning about something you don't know anything about, you're going to have an opportunity to really expand your horizon. And if you're not, that's okay. But you can only lead people to the water. You can't make them drink. And so so when we look at someone like Will or Jay, I mean, Jay was a personal friend, so that's different. That was a circle of influence thing, but we go through the same process. I start at the beginning and I assess their goals and what makes them tick, and how open-minded are you to finding different businesses. And frankly, it's pretty random what I pick for people, because I'm not a matchmaker. I'm not a broker. I'm a career ownership coach, and I just want people to learn about a broad spectrum of possibilities, find out what they like, what rises to the top as their must-haves, which we don't know at the beginning. They will come out of them as they go through discovery, and they realize, ooh, I really like what Holeinthewall said, or, well, you know what? I don't know if that's going to do it for me. That I didn't realize that was important, but now I do. And so I tell all my clients, I don't want you to go through this with decisions in mind. I want you to go through this to discover what you like, what you don't like, what your must-haves are, what your must-not-haves are. And from that, we can decide. And then also, is there a universe that exists that your goals can be met? From an income, from a lifestyle, from the ability to do the job and a willingness to do the job. If we can say yes to all of those, yes, I get the income I want. Yes, I can have the lifestyle I want. Yes, I can do the job and I want to do the job. Then we worry about the investment. Because if you can't meet those three top goals, the investment's irrelevant. You're not going to do it. It could be $20, you won't do it. It's not too dissimilar for how you subconsciously think about accepting a job or pursuing a job. You just do it kind of second nature. But for some reason, people look at a business and all they do is look at the cost. And business is an investment, and it's a co-investment. You're investing into your franchisees. They're investing in you, and together, your business partners moving forward. So that's the difference. But if I look at the same criteria and say, apples to apples, these are the exact same, the ownership piece trumps it by a mile, because now you control it.
Yeah.
So but you have to be open-minded enough to not get mired in the cost of something, because it's not a cost. Cost is gone. Investment's different. There's a return on that. So you're not buying a product, you're investing in yourself. But if we can't reach the goals, the investment amount is irrelevant. If you can, now it's how can I get there? How am I going to fund it? What's my timeline? What's my pro forma look like? Now we're talking about how can we? But if we just focus on the cost, we're not going to do anything. It's like, well, that's a lot of money. Okay, well, but what's the return?
Yeah. Enjoy clocking in.
Yeah.
Did you know that there are over 140 million homes in the U.S.? 97% of them have walls and ceilings that are built using drywall. The drywall repair industry is simply enormous, valued at over $13 billion a year. We're Holeinthewall Drywall Repair, and for years we have been perfecting the art of repairing drywall. developing and refining our systems, and strengthening our brand. Our business model is simple, scalable, and easy to learn. We believe it's a real game changer. We are successful drywall repair pros who decided to take our repair business to a higher level, growing both our franchise training and support to industry-leading standards. You'll benefit from our vast experience helping your franchise hit the ground running and achieve success quickly. We'll give you access to our marketing team that has created strategic programs designed to get your phone ringing and booking new business fast. Join a fast-growing leader in an exciting dynamic segment of the home service industry by franchising with Holeinthewall Drywall Repair. Start building your own business and securing your own financial future today. So since we were talking about all the people that all different walks of life that you're talking to, are there any like through lines? Are there like any like myths or things that people have in their head that are really just wrong about franchising and owning their own business that you see that you can pinpoint?
Absolutely. I think the number one thing is that everybody needs to get over their employee mindset. The first step is they get a lot of assumptions, a lot of fear. In our world, we call fear as an acronym for false evidence appearing real. And so they may have a visit with you in the first one, and the minute they're like, well, I can't do drywall. I don't know anything about that. That's hard labor. I can't get up on a ladder. So they want to dismiss it. And so the through line is assuming that they're going to be doing all the work, that they're going to be the technician. And if we can get them to think on a higher level, it's like, maybe you do have to do that for a little bit. That may or may not be the case in Holeinthewall. But chances are you're going to be hiring people who do that because you're going to be in charge of business development. You're going to be in charge of managing the business. You're going to be out there doing, customer relations and that type of thing. You're probably going to be the last person at some point, and depending on how fast you do that, to be on the ladder or to be, putting up the mud. And once we can get people past the employee mindset and into the ownership mindset, now we're in good shape. And so that's the through line is I'm a career ownership coach, ownership mindset. Let's get to that level. If we can get over that hurdle, chances are, no matter, even if you don't go into business for yourself, you're going to come out ahead. But that would be the number one thing. That's the biggest, I think, hurdle to overcome.
And how long does that process usually take from the time you engage somebody till they kind of come to a point of decision one way or the other?
Great question. I think for me, it depends certainly on we do the DISC profile for our clients to kind of figure it out. Some people are very risk averse and some people are just like full steam ahead. Like, Jay's a great example. When he told you the story about the passwords. Well, they wouldn't give him the passwords, and so they fired him because he couldn't do the job. And he's kind of like, well, thanks a lot, But I saw him shortly after that, and he said, Fred, I don't want to talk to you about business ownership right now. I said, hey, great. You know where I live if you want to talk sometime. And about a year later, he called me up and said, I got to do something. So he's not a risk averse guy. He just wasn't in that headspace yet.
Right.
He kind of hadn't hit bottom in his mind. So he always has an ownership mindset. He just wasn't in a business ownership mindset at that point. But some people are just they've been an employee for so long. It's almost like, what do you call it? Stockholm syndrome. It's like you've been hostage for so long, you just don't know anything different.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine what the world will even look like if I don't have this job. How will I eat? Where will I drive to every morning?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think the key is if we can introduce them, and that's where I think the validation is so important. If we can introduce them to people like them, those people in particular, I think of my dad who's like that. He's a great guy, incredibly successful, but he's the type of guy that if he doesn't see someone he knows, loves, and trusts doing something before, he's very reluctant to be that first one to take the step. So there's certain people like that. There's nothing wrong with those people. Those people can be very successful. You want those people in your organization to kind of temper the heat of someone who's, full steam ahead. So what you can do is if you can find someone like them that's done it and have them tell their story, now they can envision themselves doing the same thing, but they have to be able to envision themselves doing it. And validation is important to that. So talking to other franchisees that are like them, people who have similar stories or similar styles, overcoming their fears. That's number one. And really, it's all fear comes from the unknown, in my opinion. And the cure to the unknown is asking questions, getting answers. Maybe the unknown, as you saw it, is correct. Well, now you validated that. Now what do you do with it? Do you go over it, around it, or retreat? But I encourage all of my clients who approach fear, people will say, oh, fear is an emotion. We don't want to make emotional decisions. That's correct. We don't want to make emotional decisions, but we don't want to discount emotion. Emotion and feelings are the mind's defense mechanism against injury. It's an evolutionary thing. But so what I tell my clients is, take that moment. That emotion is an inflection point. It's the indicator that we need more information. We need to ask questions. So what questions can you get answered to overcome that fear or that doubt or that emotion? And then you can make a decision based on facts rather than simply feelings. Feelings aren't bad, but they're not the answer. Another analogy, my finance professor in business school said, data doesn't answer any question for you. It only tells you what questions to ask. And data, in this case, is analogous to feelings. They do not give you the answers. They only tell you which questions to ask.
So Jay took a good year to come around on it. And what would be a sort of a short timeline? Somebody, how quick could somebody move once you start working with them and coaching?
I will say that Will came out of nowhere. Bill and I were talking about this before. Like it was like I saw him in the pipeline, and then all of a sudden he's at the Meet the Team Day, and he's like it was. I felt that Will was a pretty fast ramp, but I don't know how long he was with you prior to getting to us.
Yeah. So, typically it's going to take 3 weeks or so if someone's keeping on the cadence and there's no rescheduling to go from introduction to presenting possibilities. And that's when I introduce them to different brands. But again, that's still very, early. And so I would say once Will was introduced, he actually was introduced, if I go back far enough, I don't think I presented possibilities to him in the middle of June. But prior to that, I think I met him in March. There was a lot of rescheduling, some spring break stuff came about. He was, struggling with some things. The key actually, before we did that, was I insisted on meeting Megan because I wanted to make sure she was comfortable with what Will was going through and understood what we were trying to do as a team to show him stuff. I think if you don't do that, if you don't get the CEO, the chief emotional officer on board early in the process, it's really hard to make up for that, because I think even if it's an awesome thing and it's a no-brainer, like they should do it, there's a level of trust. It's like, well, why, if this is such a great thing, why didn't you share it with me sooner? And so I think that's really important. And so all of the candidates that have gone through with you, Jay and Joni, you had Jordan and Jackie. I don't know what the JJs are going. Mm-hmm. You got Will and Megan. Mm-hmm. and then you're also working with another client, Shane and Stephanie. Mm-hmm. So another SS, right? Yeah. I don't know what's going on, but they are all examples of people that are extraordinarily strong in their marriage. Jackie and Jordan, and I hope they don't mind me saying this, when they look at each other, I mean, they were childhood sweethearts. They look at each other with adoration. And I mean, like, it's respect, it's love, it's confidence, it's support, it's everything. I've never seen it.
Yeah, we picked up on that as well.
Yeah.
And that was the coolest thing. Jordan was gung-ho. He's like, I got to get out of what I'm doing. I got to own a business. We pulled Jackie in. She's like, oh, no. And he's like, oh, no, but honey, with this and this. And she's like, okay. By the end of it, was getting real. And Jordan's like, he froze for a minute. And Jackie's right there like, you can do this. You're going to do this. Don't get scared now. You got this. You're going to be great. And together they're doing it. But it was fascinating to see that. And I don't think if you don't have that early enough, mm-hmm. that can be the downfall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was funny because meeting Jackie for the first time face to face at a Meet the Team Day, and it was crazy because by the end of the day, she's like, "Well, when do we sign?" I mean, she was so on board, and to see that she's like, "I have full faith in my husband that he's going to run the bejesus out of this thing," and of course he is, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I wrote down on my notes here, spouses, like it's a big deal because you have to, you're going to be in business. How often have you seen a spouse kill a deal or jump that hurdle because the spouse is like security, right? So I'm assuming it's a man looking at the business and the spouse is the female. Women like the security. Not always. That's why I was just clarifying. Yeah. But a lot of times women like the security of a paycheck. They like the vacation time schedule. They like that there's insurance and things like that. That hurdle of the spouse, is it a hard hurdle, or is it something that once they see the end game, the big picture benefits, it ends up making sense?
I would say more often than not. Again, it all depends on when you get involved, and the earlier the better. I'd rather do it before we present anything, because I've seen too many things where I had a client, he was all ready to go, but the spouse legally, I think, has to sign off on all this stuff anyway. Right. Yeah. So they literally are important. It's not just a support thing. They have to sign off on it. And we were ready to go, and she wouldn't sign off on it. And talking to him more about it, I'm like, and she was right. You're not in a financial position to do this. Like, I know you want to do it. I know you think you're going to be successful, but she's not wrong here. So she didn't blow it up. It was blown up, but if he had brought her in and talked to us, we could have maybe saved some time and maybe found a different way to get them where they wanted to go, made some plans to get their financial house in order before going through discovery. So there was that. I've had one client, and this was tragic, quite frankly. He was going right along. He was interested in looking at things, and his wife said, "No, we're not looking at business possibilities. It's too risky." And I said, "Get her on the phone. Let's have a conversation about that. Let's have her go through some coaching and talk about why that may be true, but we don't know because we don't know what their turn is yet." He said, "No, we're not going to look at possibilities. It's too risky." I'm like, "It's too risky to learn? I don't understand that." "Well, it's true." I said, "Okay, well," I said, "I've let you down then because I've missed something here. I have not integrated your spouse early enough in this process to learn." I said, "You don't have any clarity whatsoever. You just know what you know. You have learned nothing new. You're going to move forward. And I would hate to see in a year you saying, 'Wow, I should have talked to Fred and looked at some possibilities,' because now you will have wasted 12 months of your life not doing what you wanted to do simply because you wouldn't learn." So again, she's very risk averse. He was risk averse. I get it. But yeah, I had a spouse I had a woman who I was working with, and she was debating retirement versus going into business. And the husband shot it down like over a phone call. He's like, "Yeah, we're not doing that. Bye." But, okay, nice chat. But that's why it is absolutely important. The earlier the better, because again, I think it is about trust. Why are you having these conversations behind my back? Why am I not involved in this? If this is so great, why haven't you discussed it more?
Right.
They're not wrong.
Yeah. So when you're looking at people, I think that it's all demographics, right? It's young, it's old, it's male, it's female. Do you see like an ideal person, or is it just to where the people are at a certain point in their life?
I think you can make some generalizations, and then the exceptions prove the rule. Typically, I'm going to look at someone most likely is going to be between 40 and 55. And that's just because they've been working ideally long enough that maybe they've put away some money. They have some access to capital, or at least to leverage. They probably worked long enough. They're making enough money so that if they need to do an unsecured loan or something like that, they can, qualify for that, or SBA. The younger you are, it doesn't mean that you can't do your business. In fact, I think there's some great opportunities. It's tragic, quite honestly. I'd rather see someone these days invest in a franchise rather than invest in college, if college isn't right for them. I come from a liberal arts background. I think it was a great experience, but at the cost of a liberal arts degree, you're looking at $250,000 in poetry. Yeah, you can learn to write in your creative mind, but how do you monetize that? But if you took that same money and invested it in a franchise that can get you, let's say, in your first year, maybe $50,000 net, that's not unreasonable for someone who's willing to work hard, et cetera. And, your next year looking at 100 grand. I don't know many 20-year-olds are making 100 grand, that's their bottom line with right out of college. So I think the return on investments can be much faster if they have access to capital, if they have access to people who can support them, fund them, et cetera. But generally speaking, I would say it's in that area.
So talking about cost, let's stay there for a second, because obviously, I think that's one of the myths that are out there as well, that it's just too expensive. I can't afford to buy a franchise, because we all think, McDonald's, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So, but you coach them through, how to find the money, where to access the money from. They can leverage their own money. Talk through that just a little bit. What are some of the things that you look at when you're talking about funding?
Well, I think there's lots of, and we work with the same people. There's a lot of great companies out there that can do. The most interesting to me that I didn't know about when I was going through this is something called the ROBS, which is the rollover for business startups. And again, I'm not an expert on this. I just know the premise of it. But the idea is that you can take, if you had a 401k at a prior job that you rolled over into a individual retirement account, a self-directed, you got it at Fidelity or something like that, you can use some or all of that to fund your business, just like that money currently is used to fund other people's businesses like Microsoft or Apple or whatever. Your company has stock and it sells it to this funding mechanism, this ROBS, and now you've funded the startup of your business. My understanding, again, not a tax professional, don't take what I say as writ. If you were to scale that business and sell it, normally that would generate a capital gain of which you'd have to pay tax on. But because it's still in your IRA, your retirement account, just like if you sold the stock, that tax is deferred until you take it out as income later. So there's a funding mechanism. There's no interest that you're paying on it, because it's really you're not even borrowing money. You're just funding. You're using your retirement sums to fund your business, which you hope will grow. And so that's
pay yourself back.
Strategy.
You kind of pay yourself back, right?
Exactly. Then there's small business administration loans, which we've all maybe heard of traditionally. That's a traditional path. They're a little more complicated, but they've got actual programs that are there, and that is a great way to fund a business. And then there's unsecured, and unsecured means that you're actually just getting a private loan that is based on your credit score and your current income and your ability to repay it. So it's not collateralized. You're not risking your home. You're not risking any of your assets. You're just risking your credit. And I say just risking. Obviously, that's a big just. But generally speaking, those have less hurdles to overcome, but they may be more expensive than an SBA. Mm-hmm. Then there's always HELOCs, right? You can take out a home equity line of credit. Again, now you're risking your home. That's the trade-off. But generally speaking, it's, if you've been in your house for a long, long time and maybe you paid it off, the interest rates are usually pretty stable. They're a little bit lower and you can access quite a bit. And again, that's your money, that's your equity that you're now paying off. And that can be a way to do it too. So those are the most traditional ways to fund a business. But I don't know anybody I self-funded my business, but I did it after selling my house and downsizing. So effectively, it's a home equity line of credit.
Yeah.
So that's just me. But I would say most people use leverage, and that's not uncommon.
Yeah. Well, and then educating the candidates on those options are key. Mm-hmm. So the more they know, the more comfortable they get.
Yep. And that's part of our discovery process too. Is we'll introduce people to a lot of different folks just to learn. And we insist with the people we work with to go through an educational, not a sales process. Here's what you qualify for. Here's what's possible. And that can be enlightening because a lot of people don't know. And so suddenly they go from, I can't do this to, if it's right, maybe I can. And here's some vehicles to do that. That was good to know. It changes their mindset, makes them hopeful.
Yeah, Bill and I talked about this quite a bit, but when we sunset someday, some year out of Holeinthewall, I will never start a business from scratch again. we just won't build it from the ground up. We are going to, I'll find a way to purchase a franchise and then help that franchise grow. Cause it's just it's a no brainer for many, many ways. Cause it could take you, I mean, it took us, 8+ years for Bill and I to even get to the point where we could become franchisors. And then even after we became franchisors, it still took us a couple of years to start the momentum of actually getting in front of somebody. We spent 2 or 3 years just kind of hoping for candidates to come our way. It really wasn't until we engaged with Fran Growth that we saw the full potential of what we could become, and to see their excitement for our brand and for what we offer, and then being able to introduce us to people like you. That's kind of when we saw, okay, this is something that we can do. Yeah. Would you mind just for a quick second, just kind of talking about your experience with Fran Growth and how you feel the relationship that maybe that we have with them versus how you have with them benefit us?
Yeah. Well, I think that, and most of my experience, again, I've only been doing this for 2 years. So it's with Fran Growth per se, it's been relatively limited, but I've worked with, let's see, I know Andrew, Mark over at Hudson Valley Swim. Gosh, COVID brain, my memory stinks on some of this, but Set the Stage. There's a lot of different brands that are in Fran Growth. And I will say this, I think the experience has been, the people are great. And it is so important. If there's one thing that I can say that is so important, it's communication. It's, hey, Fred, got your referral. I'm calling them this week. Hey, Fred, I called your client. They haven't gotten back to me. Do you know anything different? That open line of communication is huge. Andrew, for example, for you guys, is phenomenal with that. And the coachability back and forth, right? Fred, how do you see this? What do you know? Well, the client likes it, but maybe feels that he's moving too fast. Okay, well then we'll, and it's not about. There's no such thing as a misperception, by the way. There's only perception. So someone say, well, I'm not pushy. If they say you're pushy, you're pushy. That's all. I'm not saying that happened. I'm just speaking in general. So to have someone say, okay, what are some suggestions you have for maybe how we can do this? And so for me, it's not even, I'm not trying to close a deal or not close a deal unless it's, getting down to the wire and it's a decision-making area. I'm looking for a great experience for the client. And so if that means that we need to slow it down, we need to have a different take, that's my goal. It's not to move the deal or not move the deal. It's to give a great experience for the client so that they don't have a bad look on discovery as a whole, because it will carry over into the rest of their experience at the other possibilities, and will impact their willingness to refer someone else to me. So it is about making everybody look good is what it comes down to. And so the good communication and ability to coach back and forth and collaborate on creating a good experience is absolutely crucial to the relationship. Andrew's been very good at that in particular. And I have more experience with him than anyone else. So he's the one I could speak to. Yeah.
Well, we like him. We think Andrew was probably one of the best things that happened there. When Dan brought him in, it was like, that's it. We love it.
Yep.
Well, Fred, listen, we've kept you over 50 minutes. Anything else you want to tell the world before we let you go?
You know what? I will say this, and I'm glad you gave me that opportunity, just to speak to franchising in general. I was with a franchisor, and we had a great conversation, and he was from France, and he said, the one thing that's so amazing about America is franchising. He said, it's uniquely American. In other countries, if you have a good idea, you keep it to yourself. In America, if you have a good idea, people are disproportionately willing to share it and bring others into the opportunity for success. That's what makes America different, is we are in a shared willingness for everybody to thrive. A rising tide raises all ships. And there's no better example of that than franchising, where someone's got a great idea, a great brand, a great service, and they don't just want to keep it for themselves. They want to share it with others so that they can be successful. And you're doing that as a more emerging brand, and you're culturally sharing that. You're operationally sharing that. Everything you're doing is sharing for the success of others. So if anyone's ever thinks, oh, franchising, it's a big corporate monster because they think of McDonald's or they think of Subway or something like that, Maybe, but most of them, all 5,700, are not that. They're small business owners in your community just taking a model and using it to share in the success that others have demonstrated and to support each other. There is no better environment to be a business owner, in my opinion, for someone who's trying to start it out for their first time example than franchise.
Well said, my friend. What is the best way for people to get a hold of you if they want to talk more about franchising?
Yeah, terrific. You can go. My website is fwebster, so as in Fred Webster, fwebster.esourcecoach.com. And my email is very similar. It's fwebster@esourcecoach.com. Website's got lots of resources that are free to learn about business ownership. You'll see that, all of my testimonials, et cetera, about half of them are people that did not become business owners. And I'm just as proud of those as I am the ones that did become business owners. I really want my clients to find clarity so they can move forward without regret. And if we do that, then it's a win.
Outstanding. Well, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Love you guys.
Continued support.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time.
Taking care of all your candidates. And well, thank you everyone for listening. It's been a great show. Thank you for being a part of it, Fred.
Thank you so much, Bill and James. Take care.
We'd like to thank you for listening to the Holeinthewall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Holeinthewall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.